stream. First off, gotta mention Ben is in the chat tonight, so thanks Ben for joining us in the chat. But with us here we have Dom and Rob. We're gonna break down COTA a little bit, just kind of wrap up loose ends from that race, and then we're going to be volume of my phone was up. Then we're going to be talking about Richmond. But in between that, we have a very special guest joining us on the show. Emma Britt will bring her in about like 5-10 minutes. Talk to her about her journey, about her career, and just like other stuff that is just really, really fun. She's a super awesome girl. So excited to have her on. Women in motorsports, want to definitely highlight that for sure. She's fantastic. So let's dive into Circuit of the Americas. I think one thing to start off with was just outright dominance from Tyler Reddick. So talking about what we see in his future, any closing thoughts from that race that y'all want to mention?
I think it's great to see Tyler Reddick adjust to not only driving for a new team, but driving a new manufacturer that early. I think it's time we start considering him to be the new road course king. Not to say that there can't be a royal court, but if there is, he's definitely up there. I think in general, 2311 showed speed during the weekend because Bubba was up there in practice and qualifying. Unfortunately, he had that issue that kind of knocked him out of the race, and really through no fault of his own. I think it was a brake failure or something that
it was something weird like that.
Yeah, like, it wasn't he missed the turn. It was a brake thing. But it was one of the better races I've seen Toyota run.
Which is crazy for them.
Considering it's a night and day. Like it seems like their road course program is better than their oval program right now, from the tiny sample size that we have.
Well, I would say, honestly, I feel like I would disagree a little bit with that. I think that Reddick kind of just showed the incredible talent he has regardless of the race car given to him. Sure. Because, you look at Hamlin. Hamlin was irrelevant the whole race. Bubba Wallace, he didn't get enough laps for us to see what kind of car he had. Christopher Bell just wasn't in race winning contention. But Christopher Bell, it doesn't matter where you take him, he's going to be good.
He's been an outlier in the Toyotas all year.
Right.
Yeah, and he's carrying right now for me and Jacobs Racing too.
Truex was never a superior road course racer. He's got wins on road courses, but he's not a guy you're going to expect to be up there all weekend. But Reddick was just crazy fast. And right. I credit that more to a little combination of just great team setup, great setup of that race car, getting him exactly what he wanted, and then him just delivering and showing you how to get around COTA as fast as possible. So,
and it's not
for Reddick.
Because he had speed last year.
Right.
Really, honestly, he should have won last year too.
And it's very cool that the car he drove finished second behind him to kind of just get the final say.
What a good / lucky strategy call by Kyle Busch.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That was
good for him to hang on to second.
Yeah, for sure. Especially at a track where tires are probably more important than some road courses.
Right.
That's when experience really pays off.
Yeah. So I would say for me, and I mentioned this a little bit in the full length ATYL episode, but it was really nice to see early success from Kyle Busch, winning like 2 regular season races into the season, 2 regular races, you know what I mean? And then also having Tyler Reddick win this early on too, like it shows for me that the community within those teams is strong. They welcome them on, and they're in a place where they can be successful. Not that they weren't successful at their own teams. That's not what I'm saying, but having early success as soon as you enter a new team, that's rare. So really awesome to see that. Next time we're at a road course is that Sonoma in June? Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit. But I will say the new package that we saw at COTA, that we have the new package for the short tracks and the road courses was fantastic. I love what I saw. So I'm nervous and excited to see what that does at Sonoma. The one topic I wanted to touch on, we did have the no stage breaks, and we can talk about that a little bit too, but the overtime finishes, I know this has been a hot topic this entire season. We've talked about it on here, but now there's debates and conversations happening on solutions. I don't know if either of you, Dom or Rob, had solutions to talk about the overtime restart. Should we reinvent the wheel here with how those are dealt with, or do you think they should just stay as we have them now in the NASCAR rule book?
I think the reason why it's such an issue from last week is because of the layout of turn 1 at COTA, because it invites everyone to go in side by side. Whereas Watkins Glen, you do it is a sharp right-hander and an opportunity to make passes, but they know how they need to get through that corner. And it also kind of helps that there's a giant runoff area. So if you don't have brakes going into that turn, you're on the outside, you have the opportunity to arc your corner and go as far out to the wall as you want. And then Sonoma it doesn't have that accessibility to go launch into a turn. It's an uphill braking zone. So I think that's just the layout of COTA. I know Denny Hamlin was saying single file restarts, and Dale Jr. was saying one attempt at a green white checker, which I kind of like that, the one attempt and one attempt only. But the constant overtime thing, it's just it's a recipe for disaster of making you stay the entire length of a regular race after the regular scheduled race.
Yeah.
The problem is we're going to run into an issue where we're losing daylight at a track that doesn't have lights because
Indianapolis 2017.
Yep. That's, and I knew I had a race in my head that I was thinking of. I'll be honest, I'd rather them just not do overtime at all, especially if you're going to have
big proponent on go the scheduled distance.
Especially if you're going to advertise the distance. If it's 500 miles, go 500 miles.
Yeah.
As we said, we've been saying since the race ended, Kyle Busch won the Daytona 500, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 520. However many miles were after that. But it's true, honestly, and I think IndyCar doesn't do overtime, but you wouldn't know because they don't advertise the distance. Honestly, it's the same thing. What we do with a couple of our races in the modified tour, we don't always have the distance. Actually, the 4 races that we have this year that JDV is doing for the modified tour, none of them have the distance advertised. So it's the Granite State Derby is 175 laps. Doesn't say
called the Derby, the Challenge, or the Shootout.
Exactly, and I love that, and I think that adds more excitement to it. So, I guess my thing is if you're gonna do overtime and you're hell bent on getting a green flag finish, which I think is an admirable aspiration, I think it's definitely something that can be done. But if you're going to do that, don't advertise the distance.
And I will say
the back. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say the back and forth debate on this too is, you don't want the race to drag on because that can get tiring. But at the same time, let's say you're a fan at the track. You wanted to have a full race, ending it under caution just kind of sucks. You're not like you're saying hey, why was I here for the past 3 hours? Why was I here for? What was I here for? But it also is a little disappointing when you end under caution. Granted, and I'm seeing in some of the comments, and I want to bring these up real quick. There are some other solutions that I had thought of as well. For example, Mitch on YouTube, he says need to go to single file restarts, which I think could be interesting. Maybe bringing that back. I know that was brought up by some in the industry as well. Leon's Automotive also said single file restarts and 1 overtime attempt should be going forward. And then Ben, good to see another Ben in the chat. Said, Rob, you're spot on. OT has to go if we need to compromise for whatever reason. 1 attempt needs to be the limit. So it seems like we're all kind of agreeing on that, 1 attempt, potentially looking at single file restarts. And I think the big issue, not only just turn 1 with Circuit of the Americas, Dom, but is at least with the road courses, it takes a lot longer to get back to the start finish line. That means there's a lot more potential to wreck. And I think too, having to hold the drivers a little bit accountable for the panic that ensues. You see the green, white, checkered flag. You're like, oh my gosh, this is my chance at overtime to get to the front, even if it means wrecking my way there. And that type of mentality has to stop, or else we're going to keep seeing overtime after overtime after overtime. So it's balancing all that.
And I know we've talked a lot about the fact that it's a driver's lack of respect, or, that whole, controversy. The problem is the drivers are playing the game that they're being forced to play. Yep. Winning means everything. So obviously they're going to go for the win if they can. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. goes for the win in the Daytona 500. He does not have to worry about anything now. He's in the playoffs. And I think they went in a complete opposite direction when they said you don't even have to be in the top 30. They took a rule that was already pretty ridiculous and just doubled down.
Yeah.
So they're playing the game that they're forced to play, and it's just creating a recipe for lack of respect when racing. And it's also when you put fenders on a car and put them on a road course, and with a car this quote unquote durable, people get really brave.
Yeah.
The last point I'll have too is that with a single file restart, I can just start thinking about older races where all the games that were played on single file restarts, all the controversies that come at us, and then just think of all the chaotic blocking that'll happen on a single file restart. So just think about that when you think about
that, and the fact that you have there goes that. I was because I was just watching a race in 2007 the other day, and they were talking about single file restarts, and obviously this is way before we ever did double file restarts, and they were talking about how you're restarting in 20th and you're already so far back. And I think that's another really good point. And I would assume if we're doing single file restarts again, I don't know if they would bring back the lap car rule, or they pull up next to the.
So I know, like with 10 to go, they would do down finger restarts, and everyone would go tail end. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if NASCAR modifies this moving forward. I know the discourse around it has been, heightened over the past few years, but this season, as we've seen it happening over and over and over, and we're like 7-ish races in at this point, maybe just having NASCAR reconsider some things or just bring some things to the table is what I'd be interested to see. But now it's time to bring in a special guest. Dom, take it away.
Yes,
you got this.
We got a very special guest coming along. She is possibly the future of NASCAR stock car racing. She is doing what all the current Cup drivers are doing and is learning how to drive a race car right now, driving in Bandoleros at Atlanta Motor Speedway. If you've been paying attention to NASCAR recently, Joey Logano won at Atlanta in the Cup Series after multiple years of dominating the short track in Legends and Bandoleros. So this girl is doing it now. She is taking the reins of the short track at Atlanta. So now we're going to bring her on. It is Emma Britt, driver the number 38 Bandolero. There she is.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. How are y'all doing?
We're doing fine. We're doing good.
I'm a blast. You're on the show now.
Yes, we're good. So, Emma, this might be a really horrible first question for you, but if you're meeting somebody for the first time, what do you tell them about yourself? Just give us a brief summary of who you are and what you do.
So probably the first thing that I would tell them would be about my racing, and it's a big part of my life because it's all I do probably in the summertime, and all of my weekends I've really devoted a lot of time to it, and I'm very lucky to have friendships that go along with it. Like all my friends come with me, and I'm very lucky to have those friendships, and that would probably be one of the first things that I tell them.
And you started racing in 2020, is that correct?
Yes. So when COVID hit, I probably would say we were thinking about it probably around February. Well, when COVID hit, it pushed it back. So I started racing probably at the end-ish of 2020. I got to run the Thursday Thunder, but I really got into it a full year in 2021 of the Georgia Series. And in 2022 is when I really kicked it off, traveling everywhere. And that's how I kind of am now.
So go ahead and talk about the places you've traveled, because I know you don't just race at Atlanta.
So some of the places that I've traveled, and we're all going back to these tracks this year. We went to last year. I went to Florida. I went to Las Vegas, which we drove all the way out there. And wow, I will say I have a lot of respect for those people that travel those places that far to coming to where we are. It's crazy. And Charlotte and Nashville, those are, I believe, the only places I've traveled outside of Georgia.
What's been your favorite track that you've traveled to? Like or favorite and the most challenging track that you've had to race on so far?
So the most challenging has to be Vegas. It was very just different, but Charlotte was my all-time favorite. I loved that it was kind of similar to Atlanta, but it had a lot of bumps, but I love a rough track. I love a place like that you have to drive, and that was one of those.
If you could race at any track in a Bandolero, even if they currently run Bandoleros or not, what track would you want to run at?
That's a hard one. Are you talking about NASCAR track or just any track?
Just any track.
Any in the world?
Well, any in the world. I mean, if you want to run a Bandolero at Monza, like go for it.
It's such a hard, because I've been to so many of those bigger tracks with my dad, late model racing and stuff, and I would say if they could, Five Flags. It was the coolest place to watch races,
Yes.
and it's got the snowball derby. I would love to do that. That would have to be my pick.
That's a good answer.
So Emma, you race at Atlanta mostly, then a lot of Cordele, Crisp Motorsports Park, and then Lanier. I know you were just at Lanier last weekend. You talk about Lanier and Cordele all the time. What is it about those racetracks that you like so much? And you just won last weekend at Lanier.
So the thing that I love about those tracks is I have a lot of history. I grew up going to those places a lot when I was a kid, and I just love the way. Now I know that they are restrictor plated and they aren't too hard to learn, but there's also, just because you hold the gas wide open and turn the wheel, a lot goes into it. You have to learn the draft. You have to learn, like, I'm still learning things just now, like, that I didn't know. And I love learning new things. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons I really love it. And the people that come out, the competitors, you never know who's going to win, because they could draft up on you the last lap and get you. It's always a surprise.
So you have super speedway like racing when you go to a track like that?
Yes.
I had no idea. That's so cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, can you talk about the process of like learning the draft in a Bandolero? Like, were you surprised that you had to really?
Yes,
you really
it's
had to
very
draft so much?
surprising, because, like, at Cordele, which is where they mainly run those big cars, but at Lanier they only run us now and drift cars. You have to, like, build that momentum because of the restrictor plates. Like, if you lift, it takes so much time to build that back up. So you have to be careful, because you want to draft, but you don't want to hit them, and then it mess you up. So it's a lot that goes into that. So you have to really, like, be careful on how fast you're going to catch them, and when you want to set up your pass enough where they can't draft you back, but also where it doesn't kill you by lifting. It's a lot that has to go into that drafting.
That's a whole different type of strategy. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because our restrictor plates, we're not going as fast as we should, because it's very dangerous for us to go as fast as we could. Because at Vegas, we go 70, which if you took our restrictor plates off at a track like Crisp, it would be, they've done it a long time ago, and it was wild. So they were like, no, put y'all restrictor plates. So we had to learn the draft because of it, because it was like, how are we going to catch those cars, and all that goes into it. And it's a lot of process, but I will say I'm still learning things now, but I will say I've gotten pretty good at it.
What's been your biggest, like, oh crap moment on the track? Like, was there like some wreck that you got caught up in, or like a near wreck where you were like, oh my gosh, I just saved myself?
Oh, so the craziest one has to be when we were at Vegas, and it's a very slick track. And so coming out the corners, it was really like you're holding on to the wheel, because you're going 70 miles per hour, and that's the fastest that I've ever gone. And my first time there, a car spun out, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, the car goes, like, I'm right here, it goes like around it, like perfectly. It just went around me. I was like, because we're
Oh my
going that
gosh.
fast. If I was to lift and my car was to lose control, it would have not ended well for me. So it was like holding on for dear life in that moment. And I got very lucky. That was my main oh my, because I've never went that fast before until afterwards. But I was very scared.
Yeah, I would be scared. I couldn't do it. I'm gonna say straight up, I'd be too scared.
How many actual like bandoleros do you guys own?
So Dom's into the shop, it's a
I
big
do know
old.
that answer.
We have. I have probably 4 or 5
wow.
of my own because we have one set up for certain tracks. Like I said, there's stricter plated tracks like a super speedway like Cordele versus a flat track like Atlanta and Charlotte. Like the motors and all that and the cars have to be set up because different tracks need different things. Like a car needs to roll better here and then it needs to have better motor here. So you want to have a different car for each place or a different motor or a different setup or anything like that. So we have our own cars for certain places because we travel so frequently. So probably in total, oh my goodness, what would be a best educated guess? Because we still are getting more just now. So I would say 15 for right now.
Did you guys already have these on hand before you started racing in 2020, or has this been kind of a?
So before I started racing, my dad owned a late model truck, those kind of teams, and one of his drivers had a bandolero they kept for like memories and stuff, and he was like, would you like to try it? And ever since then it really kicked that off, and so that was the first one we started with. We never started with one, but ever since that one we kept collecting and still are.
That's awesome.
Nothing wrong with building the arsenal.
I know. Now we've got, it's funny because he went from having a team of like trucks and late models to now having a full blown team of bandoleros.
You wanted to look like the Penske garage.
Yeah. It pretty much does now.
Is there other like series or other types of cars that you wanted to try or that you have tried besides bandoleros?
So I have tested a legend car in the parking lot at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and
Nice.
So bad.
it is awesome because they just came out with those new motors and the Z09s. It's pretty because it's way more easier to roll in the clutch and all that. Made that simpler than the motors that they had before, and it is a lot of fun. I will say I am very excited for next year to potentially get to try dirt and get in the legend car, and I'm very excited for that.
You should come up to New Hampshire and run the road course there. It's insane to watch.
Don't test me for a good time. Don't test me for
so much fun.
She'll go all the way to Vegas to try and race. I think she'll go.
Yeah, she's got great tracks up here. I'm thinking of Bandolero, Monadnock with those high banks.
Well, we have ran on dirt before. They at Nationals last year. I didn't get to run it because I just first ever time at Nationals, but there was this go-kart track, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was in Inverness, Florida, and it was a dirt track, and they ran bandos on it, and it was crazy.
You have to go through some sort of orientation before you can actually compete
in a bandolero.
Yeah.
So they have a class called rookies, which are kids that just started, and that's what I would kind of call, I guess, that. I mean, they have schools like at Charlotte and Atlanta. They'll do like a full day of practice and get people that are experienced, like that are running, and stick them in the rookie class practice to teach them the line. But they have a rookie class for all beginners. That's what I started in. And then they have a bandits division, which is from 7 to 10. And from probably 11 to however old is outlaws. And I started kind of late in the game. I was probably about 12, so I had to move straight to the outlaws. So I did stay in the rookie class for a while and really got to learn, but that's what I would call like the beginning kind of school thing. Yeah.
Nice.
And with outlaws, is that like 13 and up, like anybody above the age of 13 can compete in that too? Or is it restricted?
It 13 and however old. There's actually been full adults and parents that come out and race too. Like that's very rare that sometimes the parent will, but it's just for some fun for them to do. They don't ever like competitively race, but they do it for fun. And it's fun to race with them. They've always had nice experiences with them.
And do you learn a lot from them too?
So more or less when they race, like their kid and them are at the same level, like they just kind of started. The only parent that I've raced with, she just got out of the rookie division. So I haven't really learned from them. I more learn from the people that have been in there for a while. Like I would say last year, these kids would have been in there for almost racing bandos for about 5 to 6 years. Those are who I kind of really learned from and how to race, because we raced really hard and I learned a lot. And I definitely will say those places that have those competitive cars are where you learn the most. I've learned more not winning than I have winning.
Very
You said that
nice.
before, where you really learn a lot when you don't come in first place, because you've had to
Yeah.
work to try to get to first place.
And when you get first place after working that hard, it makes it so much more worth it.
Absolutely.
Exactly. The one thing I wanted to touch on, there was one weekend at Atlanta where I think it was either practice or qualifying where you hit the wall and bent the rear end, but you had an entire team that surrounded your car, took the whole rear end out, and put a brand new rear end in. So give us a little insight on the team you've got around you.
So what happened is we were at Atlanta, and they have this 3rd mile. It's kind of a bigger track that they just came out with and they repaved. Well, the transition, they're not running it anymore, was really harsh. And when you hit it, it would make your car back into the wall. Well, one day I hit it really hard and my back can hit the wall, and they knew that I was trying my best. And that is their main thing, that if you are trying your best, they will do whatever it takes to get you back out there. And I will say, not to sound cocky or nothing, but I really, really think that my team is the best. They work their butts off all the time, and it pays off. I will say, everybody says, "Oh, their car's up front." They bust their tails every day. You can walk in this shop, and they are working on somebody's car and making sure that it is in tip-top shape. And I am more thankful for them. And just everybody that works on those cars never goes unnoticed. Every time that they help, it has always made a difference. Like Rusty and the Synergy Speed Lab and Mr. Chip and my dad, all of them, their hard work always pays off, and I really can't thank them enough for that. And Dom, he is my supporter at the racetrack. Oh yeah, I cannot. It never goes.
Every driver needs public relations, and that's what I'm here for.
He's not lying. He's not lying.
He's not lying at all. You talked about the Synergy Speed Lab. Can you talk to us more about that, like what that is?
So it's more of a driver development program, I would say.
Okay.
And it is just started to kick off more of this year than ever. And I'm trying to find the best words how to describe it, because it just kind of got started up. And we just got this shop done recently. And it's kind of like we just started building up and having new team members, but it's more of like a STEM program, if that makes kind of sense.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a driver development program in a STEM. That's how it kind of is.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
I feel like you learn a lot from that. And also, first off, a compliment to you. Like, you are like, you know so much about racing. Like, you just the way you speak about it, the way like you're so in tune with the car. Like, does that just come from like constant practice outside the car? Are you like researching, going online? Like, how do you get so knowledgeable about the sport?
I feel like I've gotten so knowledgeable is that the more that I've been around it and just observing and really, because more of like when I kind of jumped in, I was a little bit older and I felt like that I was a little bit more like mature when I joined into it, that I started to pick up on things. And when I work on my own car or I'm around the track and I'm noticing and helping, I really learn a lot about my car. So when something goes wrong, I know how to describe what it is or what exactly to fix. So I really pay attention to that, and watching my races or when I go somewhere, watching what they do and learning from other drivers and how they drive and just all those kind of things. I feel like if you really love it, like, and you got to have a really focus on it, and it really does pay off.
I have another like question that's like a 180.
Yeah.
But, like, if you could have like a dream sponsor on your car, what would it be?
I will say, considering we are about to go to Nashville, my main one that I've really wanted for a long time, because I see their late models all the time, Rackley Roofing has been one that I cannot stop looking at. They show up with the best looking cars, and their logo would look real nice on my race car. It would look really pretty.
I was thinking, you said Nashville. I thought you were going to say Tootsie's.
Oh, well.
Yeah, the Tootsie's car. I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
We just got a full sales pitch.
How'd you come up with 38 for your number?
So when my dad raced, his number was 38, and he got his number from his cousin was, I believe, 39, and his other uncle was 37. So it kind of really just fell into place for him. And then when I started racing, it was like, I love that number. Family tradition.
When you were growing up, what driver were you kind of looking up to? I would assume probably guys in your family were big ones, but other than that,
when I actually started to grow up, my dad stopped racing because of medical reasons. He started to build his own team. He had drivers for him. One of the drivers I mainly looked up to because of their courage and just the way that they were in and outside of the car was probably Josh Hicks. He just has that personality, but he also has such integrity, and how much he loves it pays off on and off the racetrack. And now he works on legend cars himself, and he really has a heart in it, and he does so good as well as he drives. I will say he's the best driving coach, and he's spotted for me, and I've looked up to him ever since I was young. And he still just, he has talent, and he also knows what he's doing on the cars too, which I think that's something I look up to, that I want to go into as a driver, is be able to know how to work on my own car and also be able to drive it as good as well, and also be able to get into any car and be able to drive it. No matter, I don't want it to just be the car. I want it to be like, I can hop in this car and do good, and hop in this car, which I will say, I feel like after the crisp weekend I've succeeded. I have won in every single car that I've ever driven in race.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, so that car, the silver and black car that she got that win in, she took it to it was nationals, right? In Florida, took it to nationals. How many motors did you blow up that week?
Oh my gosh. So Monday to, I believe, Wednesday, there was a motor blown. Well, on Wednesday's race, because we raced for a week, Wednesday's race, it finally started bopping down and stuff like that. So we came in, it was blown. And these actually happen in different ways. It wasn't the car, all these motors blew in different ways. Then on Thursday, we did a motor change right before qualifying. And I qualified third and fourth every day. And it was fine until the race. Smoking, black smoke out of the exhaust.
Oh my god.
And on Friday, we were lucky enough to have one. We got one to borrow, but it just didn't have enough. I didn't have enough power to stay up there. And also my car was a little bit messed up from a little bit of bumps and runs on the way from the whole week.
But the one thing I will say about Emma is, after that whole week, rather than being upset with the situations and all the negatives of that weekend, she's such a self-motivator, and just took all of that and ran with it. And like she said, then she ended up going back to Crisp Speedway and winning in that car. That's something that's, if you look at some drivers like Chase Elliott and Bubba Wallace, they're their worst critic. They're very hard on themselves. But then you look at Emma, very self-motivated, takes a negative, is now I want to win even more in this car. So I think that's one thing that's really special.
I definitely feel like when that whole situation happened, I wanted, because I did make mistakes in the week. And yes, the motor was blown, but I still did make mistakes along the week, and I wanted to fix those. And I didn't want to hop into another car until I had figured that one out, because I was definitely I don't want this to be the one car that I'm I don't want to get in it. I don't want to get in it. I want to work on it, because I don't want to hop into this car next weekend with everybody and it be oh, it's just a car or anything like that. I want to make sure that I can pull that car off more than any other car. And I've ran that car now at 2 places, somewhat similar to the place in Nationals, and won both of those races.
How many races this season so far have you won? I feel like you've won a lot, even last year too.
What's your winning percentage?
Your winning percentage. That's what I'm trying to ask.
We just started this season, so I don't know about I need some wood to knock on. So I have won out of how many races have we ran? Well, nationals was probably 5, 6, 7. So probably ran about, would estimate about 10, and I've won about 4 of those races, and that's including nationals. But I've qualified top 3 every single race, I would say, that I went to, or top 5.
That's crazy. Oh my
Like
gosh.
Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah.
Too easy.
I was thinking Ryan Newman.
No, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
He's on pole position.
And Ryan was really good at Atlanta, so it makes sense.
That's true. That's very true. Speaking of Kyle Busch, I want to tell a story, and I know Emma's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. So that week where she had to start in the back in Atlanta because they had to fix her car, she gets into her car.
Oh my goodness.
I know, because she's starting at the back. She's going to have to pass a lot of people. So as she's in her car getting ready to get pushed out to the grid, I show her the video of Kyle Busch's slingshot restart in the Budweiser shootout where he passed the whole field. And I was like, this is what you need to do. So the rule is you can't pass anybody until you cross the line, right? Isn't that the rule? So
Yes.
So you have to stay in line. Well, sure enough, I guess I shouldn't have showed her this video because as soon as they dropped the green, she passed like 5 cars.
Oh no, I passed all the way up everybody on the outside where I was leading coming out of turn 2.
Oh
They
my
had to-
god.
And they had to restart the race and put her at the back.
Yes.
Do
So
that.
it was raining and they just changed up the motor into that car, and I was not expecting it to take off. And if I didn't have went to the outside, I would have slammed into the people in front of me. Like, there's only 2 options, and we just started, and then I yanked it to the right, and I passed. I was not expecting to go into the corner and pass the whole field on the outside.
Oh my god. So
Sometimes
long
I
story
like-
short, Dom, you need to explain a little bit more before you go and show the videos.
Right, yeah.
Well, I feel like that
You
was
do this after you cross
Chief.
the line.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of those things where they were like, we've never seen anybody. It was like the Hail Melon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's
Like,
like,
that's not
oh,
supposed to
okay.
happen.
New rule, don't do that.
Oh yeah, I definitely have earned that one at Atlanta. I love them starts, or that's what I'm known for. Those starts. They knew, okay, she's doing it again. Let's back it up.
That's so cool.
I wanted to ask about, like, because I feel like whenever we've talked to drivers before too, like, you know, we're Xfinity level or whatever, and they're racing with people of all ages. But I feel like with you too, you've raced with a lot of people the same age or even younger. So what has it been like to build camaraderie and kind of grow up and grow through the ranks with people that are your age?
So I will say this: when I first started racing, actually surprisingly, considering how young that age range is, this is very shocking. When I first started racing, everybody was around that age. Like, everybody was 12, and I was very shocked because I felt like I was kind of late. Well, that was in 2020. In 2021, everybody moved up very quick. Like, they were like, okay, we've ran 3 races. Well, my dad wanted to hold me back. He's like, I know it seems frustrating now because all your friends are moving up, but I promise you it's going to help you in the long run because you need more experience, like way more experience. So when I was in 2021, all these other kids I was the oldest one. Well, in 2022, I was running with everybody my age, but I was very much thrown to kind of the wolves. I didn't get the bandits class, so I was really like, these kids have ran way longer. And I actually will say, through all those trials, I very much, by the end of the season, was very competitive up front with them. Like, we raced rough and hard, and I truly learned how to race. Like, I was given no grace, and then I learned how to kind of pick up on it with it. And this year, I will say, I believe I am the oldest in the class besides my teammate. I'm the oldest.
Talk about what you learned racing around other people. I want you to tell the story of how you won the Speed Fest
Charlotte?
race.
Speed Fest. That one was a good one.
And you got to go back to the first time you got beat there and how it aided you. in
Oh,
winning.
yes. So there was
This is a great story.
when I was telling you about 2020, how I got roughed and raced, is there was drivers that showed me, like, my hardest competitors. You always learn from your hardest competitors. I will live by that. Those people that you can't stand on those racetracks, those people that you can't beat so bad, they will teach you the most, because those are the drivers you want to beat the most. And there was my hardest competitor that year, and they beat me on the outside. And I never forgot that race. I never forgot the way how they pulled it off on the outside. Like, I was like, how the world did they pull that off? Well, Speed Fest rolls around, and last lap, I'm on the outside. And I remembered it. Like, quick thinking, remembered how that move. And I used that same move, and I won that race by the bumpers. I won that race using that same move I never forgot.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's like
learning.
That's like movie stuff. That's perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Taking the lessons you learn along the way, putting them in your back pocket, and then winning. Oh, that's awesome. I have one last question for you, Emma. Looking towards the future, like, what is your goal? Like, where do you hope to end up, like 5-10 years from now? Where do you see yourself?
I really hope to end up in a couple of years. I want to end up in late models, but my long-term goal would be NASCAR. I really, really want to be up there. Like, that is my goal. I really want to race for whole life. Like, it is the one sport that has truly captured my heart. Like, I have never felt like I had my sport until I started racing. I just love everything about it, the motorsports part of it, and everything like that. And I love driving hard and everybody's hard work paying off. Like, I am just super thankful for that. Like, all the blessings that I've been given, and I really hope to keep doing it.
Well, these guys know I'm biased, but on your way to the top, if you get a chance to do the modifieds, I highly recommend. Whether you're doing it up in New England or whether you're
what do you
doing
mean
it
when I make it to the top? Y'all are gonna come with me?
Yeah, but you're gonna be driving. We're not gonna be driving.
Yeah, no.
This is who Emma Britt is. She is the one that doesn't want to get there by herself. She wants to take everyone with her. She'll carry us all.
with me.
You come do a race in New England. Let me know, and I'll get some good photos.
Hey, give a couple of years. Hopefully, sponsors. I need some sponsors, and we can hopefully get there.
Well, Emma, you are well on your way to reaching the top, and we'll have to like pull some money together to make like a fan bus, like get it just get a fan bus designed. We'll just travel on the road in an RV. But Emma Britt, so lovely to talk to you, girl. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have to have you back on soon.
You're the best,
Thank
Emma.
you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to y'all. I can't wait to talk to y'all again.
Of course.
Emma, you're the best.
Y'all are the best. Y'all are what make this so much fun. Love y'all so much.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
I love her.
Isn't she just so awesome?
So we've been talking about having, actually, fun fact. So I think, Dom, you met Emma back in November, right? Like somewhere in there?
Yeah, the first time I was introduced to Emma was around November. Yeah. And it was because I got a press release saying that she won the Chase Elliott Most Improved Driver Award at Atlanta Motor Speedway Legends Division, which, by the way, David Reagan's father runs Atlanta Legends Division, all the classes and stuff like that. So that's something really cool. If you ever get the chance to meet Ken Reagan, he's got incredible racing stories, all kinds of great racing stories. So, but yeah, I met her then, and just right away I could tell like she's just so committed to it. And then I actually got to see her race for the first time in January, and top of the boards in practice, both practice sessions.
Crazy.
Started on pole position, led every lap, won the race. I was like, okay, all right, she ain't bad.
Because I remember you texting us, like Dom texted me. He's like, hey, I just met this young driver. Her name's Emma Britt. Like, told me about some of her stats. I wrote it down. I have like a note from November that I was just like keeping tabs on, and I was like, this girl is freaking incredible. And then first race in January, Dom was like, yeah, so she's top of the board. And I'm like, dude, so like,
she's the truth.
Absolutely crazy, wicked talented. So yeah, we'll have her on in the future. Let's get to closing this out with our Richmond preview. I do want to say though, we didn't look at points to start this off with. So like, if you guys don't know, the Above the Line crew has a points situation thing happening where we made a new playoff system because in the past it was too easy to like make your way back to the top. So we're like, all right, Adam formed a new playoff system. So here's how the points. Yeah, and Adam's paying for it like severely.
Adam is Dr. Frankenstein.
I've got 2 wins. What was my first win?
You do. Somehow you do. And I don't know what that will.
You each keep winning back to back.
We do.
I know because I won COTA. I know that because I picked Reddick.
You won Atlanta too.
You won Atlanta as well.
Because you picked Bell and he finished just ahead of LaJoy.
Oh, that's right.
So we're doing like this.
I've been second in like 4 races this year.
So Rob, that means that you're next to win 2 in a row, and then we'll go down the row here. But somehow I'm winning. At the end of the season, this won't be the same thing. So I'm gonna relish in it while I can.
Ben's
Adam,
very close. Ben's
very close. We're
Ben
very close though. Ben's done well. Yeah, but Adam though has fallen steeply
He came up with the point.
from his point system. We love you, Adam.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we're gonna have to see coming up in Richmond what we got going on. But yeah, let's get to our, what are we looking at? We're looking at our track facts and driver stats coming up here at Richmond. So the race length, 400 laps, 300 miles. Y'all know 0.75 mile length of track. And then our stages end. The first stage is 70 laps, second stage is 160 laps, and the final stage is 170 laps. So our driver stats, if it is the last drivers to win, active driver with the most track wins, those type of ones that are driver specific, they will not include Chase Elliott because, he's still out due to injury. No updates on that as far as we know, but he was in the booth for COTA, so we got to see him there. But the last drivers to win at the track last year, in the spring, it was Denny Hamlin. In the fall, it was Harvick winning back-to-back from Michigan. Kyle Busch is the active driver with the most track wins. Christopher Bell actually has the best average finish of the active drivers with an average finishing position of 6. Joe Gibbs Racing, this actually seems to be a decent track for them. History-wise, if you look at the stats there, 18 wins from that organization. I think this is one of the first times this season so far that we don't have like a totally like Chevy like drawn out stat board. And then obviously wins by manufacturer, looking that up from Racing Reference and driveraverages.com, Chevrolet 41, Ford 34, and Toyota 16. So yeah, talking about Richmond, kind of our storylines here, I think this is the first time we're really going to see that short track package, the new era package that we have in action. I could share my hopes for this all day based on what we saw at Phoenix. I wasn't really happy with what we saw at Phoenix, but what are you guys hoping to see?
Well, you don't like Richmond as it is.
I don't. It's my, okay,
I
first
don't
off,
understand why you don't. It's a good track.
Ever since I started watching back in the sport in 2016, I just never fell in love with the track. And usually all tracks, like I give them chance after chance after chance. And there's some tracks that are, I love every track, but some tracks I like more than others. Richmond has just been one that I can't get myself to get invested in those races. And last year, with the Gen 7 car, and we didn't really have the package totally figured out with the short tracks yet, I was disappointed. So
the track
I'm
is
excited
great
for this year.
The track is great when it ends in a long run.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say. When you can really see the tire fall off, and I think that's what made the 2 races last year really good. So I do hope we see.
To your point, Rob, like absolutely every single Richmond race that ends in a long run. Have you ever watched all the cars cross the line? They're all sideways.
Oh,
yeah.
All dirt track coming across the line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not fully against Taylor on this. I'm not a huge fan of Richmond either. I am somebody who thinks they should only really have one date, especially since they're so close to Martinsville.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's my stance.
Give Richmond some banking, Adam.
Adam.
I will say this: the modifieds put on a good show at Richmond.
Oh, here we go.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
The wheel and modified agenda.
Yes.
I will say though, like, man, when JGR switched to TRD, they have a stranglehold on Richmond now. I mean,
I remember back in the 2008 when Denny Hamlin
should have won in 08.
Yeah.
Hamlin should have won in 08. And then Kyle Busch won 4 years in a row, the spring race.
Yeah.
And a couple of those years, Hamlin won the fall race.
Yeah, and then 18, Kyle won both races. 19, Truex won both races, and then 21, Truex won, and then Hamlin won last year. So it's just you have to look at Toyota every single time you go there. And I know, obviously, we really don't have a great idea of what kind of car they're going to have going into Richmond because Phoenix is so different. It's so unique. I mean, you can't bet against them because, I mean, they've got something. They're always going to have something there.
And here's the thing, too. With the stats from 2015 to 2022, Toyota won, I believe it was 9 out of 15 of those races. So that's 60%. That's absurd.
For really one team to have a Toyota to win 9 out of 15.
For Chevy, because I can think of a couple Fords that won, but off the top of my head, I cannot.
Harvick, and then Keselowski, and remember Keselowski won led 390 something laps in 2014.
Yeah,
he won there.
But he won again in 2020 as well.
Who's won in a Chevy besides Harvick in 2013?
There's one in a Chevy.
Ooh.
All right, here we go. I can do this. Believe in yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Harvick in
Mr.
13.
Stats.
Harvick in 13. 15 was
Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
15. 16 was Carl and Denny. 17 was Logano and Larson. Larson in 17.
He's right.
And then 20 was
21. Yeah.
It was Toyota.
Okay, so Chevy's won a handful.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy Johnson in the chase, or during the chase era, was perfect at Rit. He won twice in 07. So
yeah.
And
then he won once in 08. Yeah. So it's gonna be interested to see if you got it. I mean, heck, you can name backwards and forwards every Formula One champ, every NASCAR champ from the beginning of time.
We're gonna do a stream where Dom and I just play off each other.
Just go back and forth.
Just name every winner for the last 2 decades.
And I'll moderate.
Boyer in 08. That's another Chevy.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah.
Should have been Hamlin.
Well,
it should have been Hamlin. Didn't it say though? Because I watched a clip from that race not too long ago, and it was near the end of the race, and they showed the lap leaders, and they had said the entire race, Hamlin has led every lap. Hamlin has led every lap. Can he lead every lap? And then they showed on the graphic, and it's AJ Allmendinger has led one lap, and I'm like.
So that was probably I think he had led through halfway and then pit cycles probably.
Yeah.
Should have been Junior. It should have been Hamlin before it was Junior, but I get what you're saying.
He shouldn't have come down on Kyle. I'll spark the chat.
So I guess the question
Kyle was there. It was his corner.
If Toyota doesn't perform well this weekend, is that where we turn off the alarms or set off the alarms for Toyota this season?
If they're drastically off the pace, that's when you should be concerned. If they're irrelevant, that'll be really concerning. Yeah.
So I don't know who do we think though has the best odds? I know in the chat who said if nobody picks Denny Hamlin, I'll be mad. Who was that? I got to pull it up.
I saw that. But to answer your question, I think Harvick showed a lot of speed in the 2 races last year. I think he's a good pick.
Harvick has always been good at Richmond too.
Yeah.
So this is one of his tracks where he is regardless of how good the Toyotas are, he always keeps himself close. Because I remember one year, I think it was the year Kurt won. I think Harvick won pole for that race, or maybe a year after, something like that. But he's always
got a couple wins there.
He does
at least 4.
Yeah. Because I know he was good there at RCR.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Harvick would be a bad bet. I know Stewart. Well, I know, but we all know Stewart-Haas Racing has had a interesting season so far.
But even with Harvick has been the outlier.
Yeah, Harvick has been able to consistently get himself inside the top 10, no matter what. He's I'm going to make it happen. So, I mean,
Logano's a good pick.
Logano's a good pick.
He's been good there.
Ryan Blaney too, honestly.
Well, that is just recently. He used to be.
It's recently though.
Awful.
I know.
That's the thing about Joey though. When he won in 14, he was as surprised as everybody because he said, like, this is one of my worst racetracks. So they just gave me a great car. So like now that they've actually figured out a good setup for him.
I'm interested to see what Keselowski does too.
Yeah.
Because Buescher was good in RFK equipment.
Yeah, in the spring he finished in the top 5, I think.
He almost won.
They were both good last year, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't remember Keselowski. I just remember Buescher.
They both. I mean,
Keselowski's
RFK has
turned a corner this year.
Yeah,
they're getting himself a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, and he's been more consistent. And RFK in general, I think what we learned last year, especially from Buescher's win at Bristol, is that they have a solid short track package, or at least they're developing one, which is good to see. So I want to hold off on putting Buescher or Keselowski in your fantasy lineups if that's what you choose to do. I don't think that's a bad idea at all, especially Keselowski. I mean,
if you're going to pick a Toyota, I feel like we say this every week, but if you're going to pick a Toyota, pick Bell.
Yeah.
Because
he has been all reliable for
second there in
he raced well last year too.
Last year. I don't know where he was in the spring, but
I mean, we say this every week with every driver, but look we'll see what that win does for Reddick. How many tenths is a win worth at a racetrack you haven't won at? So we'll see what that does. And then Taylor's going to laugh at me for this. Concerns for Hamlin fans. This is the 4th straight week FedEx is not on the race car. This is unprecedented territory.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, this
has never happened in his career. The last week was crazy because that was the first time that 3 straight weeks FedEx wasn't on the car. We're at 4.
What's on the car? What's on the car this
shin grips.
What is is that the red? Is it the red car?
Yeah, it's the red car.
Okay.
I told this to Taylor at the beginning of the year because it's a contract year for both driver and sponsor. And after word got out that FedEx is trying to make big time budget cuts, this might be their last year with Gibbs. We'll see.
And with
we can already see how big their pay cuts
Hamlin to the 4.
Hamlin to the 4.
I mean, here's the thing.
Hamlin to the 67.
Yeah, like, does he go to 2311 if things fall through? I mean, the thing is, we have in our brains what happened last year with Kyle Busch. Obviously, there's things that happened on the inside that us on the outside are not going to know. But there's some ominous things to where this could be almost like a Kyle Busch type of situation. So I'm curious to see what happens there.
Yeah.
Really am.
Well, it's definitely going to be different seeing now that Gibbs has a precedent.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the thing for Gibbs now is that they don't really have anybody immediately ready.
Right.
And they don't have somebody in the family immediately ready. That is not that wasn't meant to be
in the Toyota family in general.
No.
Oh
but
my God.
I mean, you're going to be quicker to bring your grandson up. I'm not going to scream it.
They're not gonna move Nemechek up as quick as people
exactly. And that's what I'm saying. They don't have like Nemechek. They're not going to move up. They're definitely not going to move up Sammy Smith.
Right.
And other than that,
he just got his first win in the series too.
The good thing too is they learned a big lesson with Logano, and they were probably pretty shocked by Eric Jones, where they did the opposite of Logano and said, we're going to make him run a full season in trucks, a full season in Xfinity before we get him to a cup car. And even that didn't work. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see what they do. But again, it's like, it's not even certain that Hamlin's going anywhere. So, because nothing's been said. So something works already.
And I guess the same could be said about Kyle Busch, but if somebody's going to pull a sponsor, you'd think Hamlin would be one of the guys that could, reel in somebody.
Look what they've done with 2311.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing, though, with Joe Gibbs Racing and M&M's. We all knew going into last season that this was M&M's last year. So that's why there was a whole bunch of eyeballs on that situation, as opposed to this. We don't know if it's FedEx last year or not. We just know that they are pulling back a little bit.
I think the only difference off the top of my head between M&M's and FedEx is that, if I'm right, FedEx has never sponsored another team other than Joe Gibbs. M&M's sponsored
multiple
handful of teams before Gibbs.
Yeah, right.
So they apparently have a good relationship with FedEx. So hopefully maybe that kind of keeps the family together.
True.
And again, it is a rebuilding period too. I mean, when you bring in Ty Gibbs, you're going to have to start rebuilding that program with that switch. When Kyle left Joe Gibbs Racing, he brought his KBM team. They moved to Chevy. So the whole organization had to start rebuilding, bringing in young talent, and that takes time. So I don't blame them for, or at least the Toyotas right now, for having a little bit of a rough start to the season, but like not really that rough of a start to the season, but kind of. But it's a rebuilding period. I mean, we're seeing the same thing even with Stuart Haas Racing, kind of, bringing in other drivers. You had Cole Custer leave, you bring in Ryan Preece, he gets back into the Cup Series. When Kevin Harvick leaves, who's going to fill that spot? Do they fill that spot? And then they're going to have to rebuild that program too. It's also, I think, just a product of the Gen 7 car. Teams are like, all right, we can get younger drivers into this car because they can just learn it real quick. There's nothing that you have to unlearn necessarily with the Cup car. So rebuilding, I guess, kind of name of the game here, but I am curious when we're going to hear any word, or if we will, whenever that is, about FedEx.
Yeah, and I think too, not to like jump the gun too much on the whole FedEx deal, but I think too, like if you look at like Brandon Jones, Paul Menard, the Menards guys, but I bet you Hamlin and FedEx are a package deal.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to see, but I think Denny Hamlin could potentially be a good pick this weekend. Don't count out Christopher Bell, but make sure to check out our social media pages. I'll have a preview of the race going on there. We'll also have our race picks. We turn on our race picks tomorrow, ATYL Crew, and then we'll do a random draw, and then we will have those up for you all on social medias. But guys, that has been the live stream. I'll put up our socials on the page too, so you can see them. But also, if there's a code in the top left corner, if you see that, you can scan it, find out or look at these guys' social media pages. Dom, Rob, Brandon, Ben, Adam, they're all there. Also on our screens right here too, if you want to check them out, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Toby Christie Com, also for great motorsports content as well. And also, if ATYL Above the Yellow Line, my brand, we also have full-length episodes every week recapping the races. So if you like to watch those, go and do that on our social media pages, YouTube and Facebook. But if you like listening to shows instead, we also have podcast forums of those. So definitely check that out. But guys, thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday night live stream. Next week, we'll be doing a live. We'll continue building the Lego set that we started last week. So that is it. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Dom, Rob, thanks for joining me. And until next time, y'all, I'll see ya. Bye.